morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome. Actually, I didn't envision this venue yesterday. I thought we'd gather around a bunch of tables, be able to sit and have coffee and donuts or whatever at the same time, but I guess this was already set up for another presentation, so we'll take advantage of it. Not meant to be a formal presentation, but we have made lists of kind of a bullet summary of where we are. And what I want to do is pass this out and then give you a quick opportunity to take a look at it, and then I'll review it with the group. Got one? Couple for you guys.
Thank you.
There you go. Back here, in case somebody shows up. Okay, a brief history of our journey. I know we shared this back in April and then June and then in our annual meeting. And we want to continue to, at least on an every other month basis, keep you informed of what's going on. But the timetable, the time frame will be accelerated in the next couple of weeks, as you'll see. So I'll go through this first. Then I'll explain what I kind of expect to happen over the next couple of weeks. But there's a lot of variability into where we are, and you'll understand that as we go through this. And then we'll take any questions you might have. So a year ago, the session worked on a strategic plan that was outlined the previous year, and a big portion of that was dealing with sustainability of our ministry. And as you're all familiar with, we've had a long-term loan, and the finances from last year and this year, for the most part, revenues and expenses are pretty well aligned to a break even, with the exception of what we pay for this loan. And the loan value is like $4.3 million. And so we've been running a negative $25,000 to $30,000 a month cash flow because of the loan. And so we're taking action to get back into a position where we can retire the loan, we hope, we expect, and then we can continue our ministry. And then depending upon if we go forward with the sale of the south property, the south 4.9 acres out of our 6-acre campus, how that equates to the funds we need to retire the loan, as well as future ministries and sustainability of our church mission. So 2 years ago, the council went through the process of establishing a strategic plan. A year ago, we went into the implementation of that strategic plan, which is where we are today, looking at alternatives for creating some equity revenue from our property. So we signed an exclusive listing agreement with CBRE, the largest national commercial real estate broker. And that's just to be able to go out and get information and get proposals and find out what the development community has in the way of options of making the best use of that space, that land, to optimize our ability to use that for our future ministries. There's been several home builders that have contacted CBRE and expressed interest in the property, so that's good news. Right now, the property, I think the commercial and residential, especially residential property in this area is in high demand. The marketing company that we've signed up with has gone, and by the way, there's no guarantee that everything goes full Monty as far as the interest in the sales through this marketing agreement. They understand, and we've made it very clear, that whatever we do as a church has to go through our process of review and approval and getting the church to agree to that deal before it's actioned. But we've gone out, and December 14th, we're supposed to get proposals from multiple developers. And the proposals can be all over the map. Based upon the current restrictions of building with the zoning that this property is in, we would be limited to a certain number of, if it was, housing units. But there's an opportunity for that to change over time, and some of the developers may take advantage of that opportunity in how they propose to us what they've worked with us on with respect to the property. So after we get proposals on the 14th of December, we're going to see what the lay of the land looks like, and the proposals could have a wide variety of approaches based upon what each of the developers believe is the best basis for making use of that property. Then we will get together as a group, the strategic planning committee that was established a year and a half ago, to go through all the different variables and try to come up with what we believe is the best choice for our future use of that property, as well as the benefit from the sale. Then we will ask for a best and final offer with some of the proposers, probably shortlisted just from a practical standpoint of working with multiple entities. And then after we get a best and final offer, then if it looks like something that the council wants to put before the church, we will call a meeting, special meeting. We'll share information. We'll get together as a church body and we'll look at whether or not we want to approve moving forward with that alternative. That's probably the shortest time frame we're talking about, is probably weeks and not months. But if there is a wide variety that we need to invest more time in getting into the details and sorting through what the alternatives are, then we'll probably extend that time frame. What we're up against is, as I mentioned, we've been running with this negative $25,000 a month burden because of the loan. We have negotiated with Thriven, who carries that note, and they put us on interest only for this year to allow us to retain some of our cash, and with the interest in helping us go through this process, because they benefit as well with the ability for us to repay the loan with them, as well as support us in the future, however that might go. So, so there's not a lot more detail to share yet, because there could be a wide variety of responses to the marketing information and what multiple developers see as a vision for the best use of that property in our campus, including the interface with the rest of the campus, obviously. So we need to take into consideration, fire lanes around the campus, the interface with the preschool, the interface with our church body here, the parking that needs to be made available for whatever the new vision of the campus is, as well as whatever the developer potentially needs to do. So there's a lot of detail that needs to be developed. And so we may get into an agreement early on and be part of that process, or we may have to work through some of those open decisions before we can sign up with an agreement that we're happy with, we're satisfied with. Anybody else on the committee, Dave or pastors, or anybody want to add any additional information or something that maybe I haven't covered that I should have? Rick?
I would like you to let them know what the differential differences of the property value could possibly be, so they have some kind of understanding of what we're, have potential.
So I'll take a shot at that, and Dave will correct me because he's my subject matter expert on this. But if it was just the current zoning, I think we could get a quarter acre per house, 8 houses on the 2-acre lot. So eight houses if you're just building a single family dwelling with a lot of neighborhood around. If you get into multi-dwelling facilities, it could be quite a bit more. 30, maybe 40, 30 to 40 units.
40 or more.
or more. So it depends on how you lay it out, depends on restrictions that the city puts on the housing. They might put a certain limit of stories.
Yeah, there's restrictions on heights, there's restrictions on setbacks, there's restrictions on parking and landscaping. There's issues with not the right of ways, but the easements,
Setbacks?
setbacks and things like that. So if it were to go to the higher density, I would guess there would probably be from 40 to maybe a little bit more than that, that would be eligible for construction on the site. But that would require additional steps, not the least of which would be the election next November in Yorba Linda, which would permit the increased density.
Yes,
And so in terms of money, I don't really, we've had the property appraised, and we've had just some preliminary opinions about value based on current market conditions. And I mean, it could go anywhere from $4 million to $9 million, depending on what happens with the density. So it's dangerous to speak numbers before you get the actual proposals, because you set expectations in people's minds about how much money you're going to make off of this. At this point, the first goal is to make enough money to retire the debt. And what happens after that, we'll have to explore.
Yeah, so it's hard to predict what the developer might think is the sweet spot, the best opportunity for the use of the land. And then the challenge in the city of Yorba Linda is they went through a vote for higher density housing in the last election, and it got creamed 75% to 25% against. But there might also be an opportunity for a developer to take advantage of the March election, get on that, get within that election strictly for a site-specific alternative of the use of this land. So, all the other voters in Yorba Linda aren't worried about what's next to their backyard. And if that goes through, then that gives us more flexibility. I also think that a developer may not look for optimizing the number of units if they can create a vision for like high-end townhomes with a nice greenbelt area around it, something that fits better into the Yorba Linda image than necessarily low-income housing. And it might be a fewer number of units, but a higher opportunity for sale of those units. But there will have to be a percentage of affordable. And affordable is relative. For our area code, affordable may not be the same as affordable in the Inland Empire. Question?
Yes, you had mentioned the idea of the election for the city council. If you had a request right now for the site exception, site specific, would the current city council be agreeable to that, or not? Or are we dependent upon the election to change their minds about a site specific exception?
Take a shot.
The city council doesn't approve that.
Okay.
They can't take any actions without a vote of the public.
Okay.
Yorba Linda is one of a handful of cities in the state that requires a general vote to change any kind of planning documents that affects residential density. It used to be that the city council and the planning commissions could make those decisions, but they can't anymore. So the city council can vote to put it on the ballot, or somebody could request that it be put on the ballot, but the city council won't have the ability to make a decision relative to the density issue.
And our council's preference in some of the strategic planning we've had along those lines is if a developer wants to go there, we will support them. But we're not going to go out and drive that. That has to be on the backs of the developer who benefits from it. Other questions? Joe?
about Senate Bill 4 by the legislature? How will that override any local city ordinances?
Senate Bill 4, I'm not familiar with the
Is that
details.
why it'll be a
Builders, builders remedy?
I believe that would be an option if the city were not able to meet its obligations under state housing laws, and the city does not comply with state laws in terms of its housing element. A builder could assert its right to construct under what's called a builder's remedy. I don't know whether that's something that could be done before the November election. Because right now, the city has an approved housing element, but it's conditioned on this election. And if the election fails and that density isn't approved, then the city will be out of compliance with the state law. And at that point, I would think that a builder's remedy is something that should be, somebody could look at if they wanted to.
So that could be, that could be something that one of the developers wants to pursue.
Yeah. I'm only aware of a couple of instances where builder's remedy has been asserted by a developer. And I don't know how those have worked out. Usually when that happens, some kind of compromise is arranged for, but in those cities, they don't have to have a popular vote. Their council and their planning commission can work with them to avoid the imposition of a builder's remedy. That's more difficult here in rural Linda.
Okay, but it's still an option, and it depends on what the developers have in mind.
We would promote or encourage.
Yeah. I know we've got some other inquiries that have come in. One of the things that I want to respond to is a year ago, last week is when we initiated having a strategic planning committee that developed the three focus areas of community engagement, financial responsibility and stewardship, and then this equity utilization, which has brought us to this point as far as use of the property. And at that time, we started brainstorming, looking at alternative use of the property, some of which have come back to us in questions, like, can we develop that property into something that is a revenue stream for us? And the way it's zoned, we could have put it and developed an Alzheimer's unit or a senior care living unit. Those alternatives, the problem with those alternatives are they all have 3 to 4 year life cycles before you get to that point. And we've got like 15 months worth of cash flow reserves based upon this negative drain. So we don't have that luxury of time. We really need to try to get a solution done in the next couple of months so we can get that well underway with the reserves that we have available to us. And then depending upon, what scenario comes out of this opportunity of the land, especially if it's higher end usage, there might be the opportunity to continue to develop some of the other things that we didn't do when we put the building program on hold in the middle of the 2000s. When we saw we weren't able to finish the master plan, and we suspended building out the life center, and we suspended expanding the school, preschool. Those were decisions that were made 18 years ago. But they might also be opportunities depending upon where we end up with this equity utilization. So there'll be a lot more communication opportunities and details in the next couple of weeks. It just to be on top of the Advent season, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And certainly, if we need to get the church community engaged in discussions because we have a wide variety and there's not really a single alternative that seems to jump out at us, we'll open that up as well for more input. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all for taking out some of your time and stay in touch.